asking me,
It's hard.
what are we doing? They said, nah, we don't help, we don't give you advice.
It's just us three today, we're
I
running the
think
show.
so, yeah, I think so. That's where everybody at.
Yeah.
We won't call it to order until we get some bodies here.
I think
We won't know when it's online either.
We have a quorum.
Oh, yeah, we can, sorry, we don't have anything.
Voting on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can cut out this,
Yeah,
this.
They come in there. What? Too late.
We'll be going online here in a minute, I think.
Did you find your costume?
Still working on it.
Me too, I've got a cowboy hat, I think I'll just.
There you go.
I'll wear a cowboy hat.
I was thinking about a cowboy as number 8. I looked up most popular costumes in the US and that was number 8.
Really? Okay, that'll do.
Witch, rabbit, those are 1 and 2.
Two.
I bang horn.
Hey, I
Hello?
don't know when we're gonna be on. We'll be on.
Yeah, all right.
Is he,
All right, we are live, so we'll wait a few minutes.
Yeah.
We'll wait a few minutes and get started.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's not live.
Which is good.
It's
Yeah.
live.
We'll wait a few minutes to call to order. We'll wait for Director Schiller.
Are these different things?
Oh, thank you.
These are 3 different?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have 3 different
Cool.
ones.
Yep. Thanks, Dan.
Yes, that-
Yep.
I just sent all of you an email, with those requests that you did for the updates on police reform and also with the 911. So,
Cool.
you all should have it. It was like an IMO overview and with an email that they sent back in June, and I had the breakdown. And then I also received from Wayne Sedor, who's with the dispatch center in charge of that, the actual bills I put in there for the dispatch. So,
Thank you.
should have all gotten that in the last few minutes.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll wait for that. I need a motion to call to order. Good to go. Is there any public comment? Public comments? Okay.
I'll defer to new business on the outlook as far as after the meeting and the timeline subsequent.
For next?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Before Bob Schiller comes, do we have any questions, you want to talk about?
I would say
So what's the process then, here after this meeting then?
what'll happen is that we will take everything we've gone over, the line items, all that, and transfer it into, put it in our system and look to craft a draft to see what our general fund is going to look like. I'm hoping that perhaps next week, I can send an invite. If not next week, the week after. Normally before council votes on the tax levy, they like to have an idea of how the year is coming in, as well as what an initial draft of 2022 looks at, in order, we are required to submit, council is required to determine which option for us to select for an ordinance within 20 days of the vote. And that's why it's important that determination is made on the first council in November, because on this way, it can be voted on the first council in December, so that the tax levy is submitted on a timely basis to the county. Otherwise we're pushing it to like the,
No one wants to
Tuesday
be
of
here
Christmas.
Eve.
Right, yeah, no, we normally do it that way. And
Yeah.
then you'll give us, and you'll
Yeah.
do it as usual, you give us the options.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
usually have 1, 2, or 3 options to see where we want to be when it comes to our levy, the percentage of the levy, and what that levy brings to us if we go, at say 1.5 or 2.2 or 3.5 or whatever it's going to be. So that's how we handle it from
And I
there.
have a question for you, Ben.
Yeah.
So we are only meeting right now with all the major players that basically are the majority of our city's budget, correct?
Dollars wise,
Dollars-wise.
this is probably about, close to 70% of
Or
our.
more. So the
our
other
budget.
ones are really much smaller. Now, are you gonna be putting together like you're doing for these? Because I know you've met with all of them already. Are you gonna be putting this together to submit to council?
Yes.
On the same evening after you've made all your updates?
Yes, once we, we still have a couple of smaller departments to meet up with. Once we do that, yes, the draft is updated for all the departments. We normally will meet with the committee beforehand though, and present the draft.
And then that's what we'll see the other
Yeah.
smaller units in there,
Okay.
just like normal.
And you're
My-
gonna keep that whole projection basis,
Yeah.
that line item right there, right? So that
Right.
has our notes for us, so we know exactly
Yes,
where those numbers are based off of.
correct.
So when are we meeting then? Do we
Well,
have a date?
The concern I have is given, with the budget the pension bond ordinance and all that, I'm gonna do my best to try and have it, we're talking next week here, before that.
Mhm.
There is a chance that we might meet a week, I might present the options to be considered, and then perhaps, meet with the committee for a draft, so that perhaps on the 26th, we'll do our presentation on how everything looks.
Okay.
Wait, so you said the 26th?
Of November?
The Friday?
What is the second council in
Second
November?
council is the 23rd,
Is the 23rd of November?
correct?
Okay, so my thought is that we present the options on the first council,
On the 9th?
right, just
November
as
9th.
consideration where we have the options, and then
Well,
council
so we
makes.
won't have the draft before the 9th?
Before that?
It's stretching it, I mean, that would require me to scramble over the next 3 or 4 days to get you guys, plus we have to set enough time for the public meeting. I'd like to say that Thursday, a week from today, that I'll have that to you. I'll do my best, but I'd like to, if you guys can just allow me, just in case I run into any snags or anything like that, because we're taking like.
I'm just wondering, when do you wanna call the next budget and finance meeting to go over the draft?
Optimistically, it's a week from now.
On the 4th, so we need to get that into the clerk's office by, you have to have how many hours beforehand, right?
48 hours.
To be safe, do you want to do it the Monday before council?
That's a possibility too.
It gives you the weekend, it gives you a little more time if we're
I
good on
like-
that.
I
You
like
know,
that.
the
I like
Monday
that.
before council,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Why don't we kind of push for that? And then we'll be at least aware of it before we actually get into the presentation in Cal.
Yeah, yeah,
If you feel comfortable.
I mean, if that's,
I won't be able to be here, but
Yeah. Okay.
go ahead, feel free to meet.
yeah, I'll share with you.
I'll watch you guys on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. That gives me a little more room, just,
Yeah.
I don't wanna rush into, we gotta make sure we transfer everything. And I wish systematically there was an easy way to position every individual departments. I've explored that, but, you know, we've gotta, you know, make sure everything's lined up properly and
Okay.
so forth, so.
Would we vote on the
You,
council?
what'll.
Not on that day,
Oh.
they do a presentation
Yeah.
on the levy options.
Yes,
The 1, 2, 3, or 4 options.
Yeah.
And then we do basically a vote or a straw poll on what we're thinking, and then it goes, then the next following meeting, or early December is when we vote on the levy.
but the key thing is, we have to make you guys have to make some determination on that day,
On the ninth?
on the 9th.
Yep.
On what you're doing, and then.
And you'll also be
yeah.
going over all of that on the 8th here with
Yeah.
them, correct?
Yes.
Ahead of time.
And then, but it's not like you're committed to that number, it's just a number that we draft the ordinance, but you guys can change your mind or, you know, up until the vote on
And Ben,
December.
I
yeah.
would encourage you then to send an email to all of the elected officials who will be taking a look at that on the 9th,
Yeah.
so that they can listen in and or come here
Sure.
on the 8th if they wanted to, or if they're busy, watch it on YouTube, that way it's not like
Yeah.
friends spanking you for them on the 9th.
Yeah.
That way, when
Or,
they
yeah.
decide, if you're asking them, you know, straw poll vote,
Yeah,
which way they're leaning, that way they have more time and it's not like
sure, yeah.
too
good point.
fresh. So I would definitely recommend sending an email, after today's meeting, if you guys are gonna schedule it for November 8th,
Yeah,
to send to all the elected officials. Strongly recommend,
yeah,
you know, I'm gonna be putting this on for the 9th. I'm gonna ask for a straw poll vote, so it's not so fresh to everyone. I would recommend popping in on the 8th, so you can actually see where everything's being based off of. That way, if you have any questions, you can ask me then.
yeah.
I mean-
And we probably should start that meeting on the cow on that Tuesday at 6 o'clock,
Yeah,
just so we have more time. 7 might be a little too
Yeah.
tight.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Especially
there's
if there's
an-
other stuff on
There's,
there.
there's other items on the cow
Yeah.
for that evening.
Good.
Yeah,
Cause the engineering crew that CMAP hired that did the 10 hours worth of seminar/webinars with us, telling us, you know, showing us how to do capital plan.
Yep.
They're gonna be presenting, so that you guys know, they're gonna give you a summarized version. You don't have to do the full 10 hours that evening on Tuesday. So I think they're gonna keep it, I'm gonna ask them to keep it to 15 minutes max.
Okay, all right. Sounds good.
so I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah.
before Bob arrives, talk about the difference of this budget versus others, because this is different funds and things that are, you know, unique to some of the other units.
Well, this, compared to our other funds, this is, obviously, we're concerned about all the funds, but this represents our essential operations of, our, whether it's our public safety, public works, the things that make everything go in the city. So we wanna make sure that, we're presenting this as an outlook, versus the other funds, they're specialty funds, whether it's the library, whether it's, so that's why having that perspective of not only the immediate year, but the other 3 years, just to give us some perspective from an operation for essential services, do we foresee any concerns down the road that we need to prepare for now? With the smaller funds, there's not as a dramatic, we're dealing with smaller dollars. I'd say in the future, we're open to incorporating that practice with our other, what you call non-major funds. But this is a start. This is probably the second year that we've introduced having the 3 forward years. So we're constantly striving to make improvements and incorporate this on the rest of the city budget, so.
Sounds good.
And if anyone has any other
Yeah.
suggestions on what they wanna see, for changes for next year, please let Ben know.
Yeah.
So that way he can look at those and see if it's possible.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So welcome, Director Schiller. It's all about you this evening. So I don't know if you want to start it off. We've actually talked a little bit before you were here, so I don't know if we want to go right to Bob, or you want to start it off and we go from there.
Sure, what we'll do is we'll start with the general fund, streets, and fleet departments within Public Works. Then we'll talk about the capital projects fund and the interrelation with our Public Works department with the capital project fund. And then afterward, we will get into our utilities fund and the revenues and expenses there. But first, as we explained previously, we have before us a budget worksheet that incorporates 3 audited previous years, in addition to presenting our 2021 budget, and of course, a comparison with the 2021 actual results posted so far. Most of our expenses are posted through September, and of course, revenues-wise, we believe we have it posted for at least 6 months, but there could be a couple of months that we're still finalizing the transactions to post in our system. Reimbursements, it's fluctuated up and down over the past 4 to 5 years. Normally reimbursements,
Reimbursements are, just that, anything that we take money in for, it can be for, scrap metals that I, recycle, most of it is for, damage restitution. Somebody runs over the center median on Cermak, and we bill the insurance company, and we get $25,000 for them damaging that. That goes into the reimbursements. Light poles, when they get run over, if we're able to collect on those, that goes into the reimbursements. So that's, and then anytime we get, contractors that don't fulfill their obligations, and we take a restoration bond, that should be going into the reimbursements as well.
Gotcha. And for now, we're gonna just budget what we expected in 2021, but we'll monitor additional revenues over the next 3 months to determine whether that amount should change or not in our projections ahead. The next area is our salary and related expenditures. We have budgeted, of course, majority of the employees in this department are contractual Public Works union employees, and Director Schiller has built in a 3% increase, but that includes longevity. There's longevity in our contract, so the next 4 years considers the longevity increases as well.
And that's not for everyone.
No, that's,
It's only the,
it's every 5th year.
okay.
They get there's a longevity, component of their contract.
Okay.
Yep. Then of course you have your overtime, your stipends. That's Dr. Schiller has considered the 2021 budget, but you might foresee some things in the forward years that cost might increase down the road.
Well, it certainly may, and we've got,
Yep.
that includes for, that's for snow, that's for any kind of storms, into the overtime, and then we're in 3 years into a construction project, something's gonna happen, periodically, where we get called in. I get called in all hours of the night and weekends for roadway collapse, contractor failures, where, you know, they've been excavating and they didn't secure the site properly, and my people have to come in and secure sites and everything like that, so.
And of course, you know, the remainder of the expenditures in this area have to do with our health insurance, where for now, we budgeted 5%. Hopefully our broker at Berwyn Insurance can keep that 5%, but that, again, is subject to change. We'll have a better idea, probably sometime around February, as far as what that percentage looks like. Conservatively, we're budgeting 10% on the increase on dental and life insurance, and of course, your IMRF is based on the salary levels as a percentage. For now, we're budgeting 10%. That's been the historical trend. FICA, Medicare is all a percentage of payroll. The next area we're gonna go with is our other general operating expenditures. Our about comments, especially on the vehicle gas and oil, you know, anticipated increase, as well as some of our supplies. What do you foresee in those areas?
Well, gas prices, have you seen what gas prices have done? And we experienced the same thing. Our fuel costs have probably come very close to doubling over the last year.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've, you know, during the lower years, you know, we've talked about, oh, should we be cutting on fuel expenditures? It's like, it's a volatile market, we have no idea, so I'm glad we didn't. I did raise to account for the increase in fuel costs, but, you know, that's that's the, you know, that's based on all the street department vehicles for the entire year, you know.
Quick question for you. The other, not long ago at council, you told us about the crazy salt shortage and how that's gonna go under which of the,
That's not in here.
no?
Salt, the supplemental salt will be out of the general fund, so that will be out of,
You just have so many
professional
funds, that's why I wasn't
services.
sure.
But salt as a whole, the standard salt is out of the motor fuel tax
Okay.
fund, which we do not have here tonight, so.
Okay.
So, let everybody know how it works with the fuel, because I know that not just the city uses the fuel, and using the, you know, the card and the license plate and the reader and all that kind of stuff, and I believe there's an upcharge to that as well?
Right, we have 11 different departments or entities that use our fuel system. Police, fire, public works, building department, North Berwyn, South Berwyn, school districts, all Morton High School, all uses our fuel system. What I've done is I've got an outside agreement that goes to each of the outside entities, and anybody who uses our fuel system gets charged, well, we get charged for gas, plus 4 cents a gallon. That 4 cents a gallon goes for billing, upkeep, tank maintenance, pump maintenance, all of the things that go in, so that if not, you know, prior to me coming here and starting this, and we were funding other agencies' fuel sources, and they weren't paying for the maintenance of it. It was the city paying for all maintenance, so.
So it's been a good thing, and
Yeah.
the other thing that, you know, I see people talk about is you can't just go there and get fuel.
Yeah,
For
you
your
know,
personal car or your car without, you know, having.
There's a key, right now it's a chip key. I'm in the process of upgrading the system and going to an even more secure system later, Windows 10 version, because Windows 7, nobody's servicing anymore, so I've gotta upgrade. But it's gonna either be another key system or it's gonna be a fob system, but every time somebody goes to that pump, it's electronically identifying the person who's there, the vehicle they're in, and the mileage of the vehicle. So you can't go with a key and go and put it in and say you're, so-and-so from, Public Works, and this is truck number whatever, and it's your personal car. Because if the mileage doesn't match, it won't allow you to have fuel. There's a range that mileage has to be in to be able to get the fuel. So there's securities built in so that the people that get fuel at that system are supposed to be getting fuel. Because all of these different entities, they have regular cars, they can be a sedan, they can be a pickup, they can be an SUV, all of that. So they may not look like a municipal vehicle, but if they've got the access to it, they've gotta have, they've gotta pass through all the security checks to be able to get fuel out of there.
Thank you.
And we in turn, on a monthly basis, we bill the outside agency, the school districts, as well as,
Mhm.
get that out for them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and of course, slight increase to the supplies. Supplies are all the things needed to make the equipment run smoother on that. So we noticed moving along to professional services, we noticed an increase. You had mentioned some patching and resurfacing. We normally also, that's also our tree cutting.
That's tree services, that's any kind of contractual work we have done. We have, with the exception of the sidewalk, which is 5400-02, that's cost shared sidewalk. But, any kind of patching, any kind of, if I need to service the medians on Cermak Road or something to that effect that's not covered under a different contract, it comes out of professional services.
And you just released, right, the map that shows where all the major patching of roads is gonna be? I saw some map that just came out, right?
There's this round, the second round of resurfacing and the patching maps were sent out to all the elected officials.
And I think they shared it on social media too, for the city.
I think we put it on our social media as well, we put it on our website. So, that's out there now, but that's where the specifications, the engineering portion of that will come out of professional services as well.
And you said that's the second time, so is it done twice a year?
We did a resurfacing program earlier in the year. We did about, just south of $1 million worth of resurfacing. We've got we did a second round this year, due to some additional funding that we were able to secure. And this round is about $750,000. Our patching is about $200,000. And the patching program is basically to extend the life of the roads that we're not resurfacing. People wonder why we're not patching their road, it's really bad. The really bad roads are the roads we're not going after for patching. Those are the ones we're gonna go after for resurfacing. Patching are the ones that are in the middle of the road that if we do some patchwork on them, we're able to extend them another 5 or 6 years before we have to resurface them, so we can get to the roads that are, more deteriorated, more in lesser condition, and in a more critical path of failure.
So patching's for roads in the
This
middle of
is
the life
on-
expectancy.
This is on our city's website. This is the pavement management analysis that was done. That's out there to look at. There's maps in there that show the conditions of each road in the city. There's also this page in there which shows you the recommended expenditures to be able to maintain your roadways. If you're gonna maintain your roads and keep them where we currently are, which is about a 55 out of 100, we need to invest about $1.91 million per year just to maintain where we're at. If we wanna increase, we need to raise that exponentially. They said in order to get our roads from 55 up to a 70, it would take approximately $4 million a year for at least 5 years. So, we've been underfunding our roadways, so as I explained to Ben, I said, this is the year that I'm gonna start pushing hard and putting in the dollars to be able to maintain our system. Because we can't let it keep going backwards. Otherwise, we're gonna end up having to try and find $30–40 million and redo the roads. Because they're gonna fail all at once and they're gonna be in such a condition we can't physically drive on them.
So we had that presentation last year in the Public Works meeting. I think it was probably around this time last year.
Something like that.
And that's one thing that concerns me is the same thing is we really need to, we can't keep pushing things, back. We really need to start focusing on, if we can't get to the 4 million a year, maybe we can get to the 2 million or whatever we have to do so we can continue to at least keep up with that, so we don't get stuck, where we have to, find $15 million because they're all grown.
So for next year, I see there is an increase.
That's more for the professional end of it. That's that's gonna be the specification preparation, the bid documents, all of the things associated with that, the nuclear density testing, things like that. I'm going to be doing approximately a $2 million program next year using Rebuild Illinois dollars. So those are, and that's state funding that we received. We're on we'll be getting our 4th installment, I think, this spring. And that's what I'm gonna use for the funding source this year. The 2021, we used motor fuel tax. I have, in the 12 years I've been here, I had zero balance in the motor fuel tax. They were taking pretty much all of the public works salaries out of motor fuel tax instead of funding things correctly. When I came on in 2009, these are some of the first things that I saw that had to be corrected. They did a bond in 2000, thereabouts, to redo a majority of all the roads in town, curbs, a bunch of stuff. Some alleys were resurfaced to the tune of about $65 million. After that was done, nobody started a savings account to start developing or saving for the rehabilitation of those roads that they just did. So a
20 years
resurfaced
later.
road is about somewhere between 14 and 16 years should be their life. We're at anywhere between 19 and 21. So we've done okay, but they're gonna continue to deteriorate in a much more rapid rate as they get older and older. So when I came here, I started to manipulate and worked with the finance department and the mayor's office and all of this to change past practices. So we were able to restructure, move some of the things back to where they needed to be. It was painful, but we had to do it because we have to start developing a savings account. So we then have now been able to, function with the motor fuel tax. We still do salt out of it. We still do our streetlight maintenance out of it. But we're able to every year do roadway patching and some resurfacing out of it. We've gotten to the point where I've got, I think I had about a $4 million surplus in there at the beginning of this year. So using everything we use with the money we took in there, we'll still have a couple of $1 million at the end of the year. So we're able to continue to stockpile for future projects moving forward. So I'll rebuild Illinois money this year so that that fund will grow more, so that next year, 2023, we should have the entire 2 million in the motor fuel tax. When we get beyond that, we're gonna have some discussions on how we're gonna supplement motor fuel, because it's not made to do all of it all together by itself. So.
And one of the good things that you did, you mentioned the streetlights. So the city is in charge of all the streetlights, and ComEd is responsible for all the alley lights. And what Bob's been doing over the last years is he's been replacing all of the street ones with LED, because it is a major savings when it comes to electricity, and it also helps for visibility, because that was always a concern. When I first moved to Berwyn, I walked to the Cermak bus to go downtown where I used to work. And in those days, the lights just weren't that bright for like safety for pedestrians. It is recommended to have the LEDs just for safety. I know some people complain that they're too bright, but for safety reasons, it's good, and it also saves a lot of money on our energy bills. So about how much?
They've gone down probably 50% in the last 8 years.
Which is huge, you know.
Are we,
How much more do we have left to
yeah, how
replace?
much, what percentage do we have to replace yet?
I've got about 75 to 80% of the residential's done. I do a little bit every year, again, out of motor fuel tax. I budget a little bit every year, and once I get through the residentials, then I move to the Cobra heads and the commercial areas. Those will take a little bit longer, because those lights are much more expensive, at least the decorative ones, Cermak and Roosevelt Road. Those are in the neighborhood of $1,500 a piece, where the others are.
And the depot ones are being done, right? With
They'll be done with the
The
project.
depot's being done with the project, and the ones that aren't being replaced, I'm gonna work towards replacing the Cobra heads with LEDs on the stress creep poles that'll remain in some of the residential areas.
Okay.
And it appears, you've touched upon the work that needs to be done professional service-wise. Repair and maintenance, that leads into our repair and maintenance, sidewalk, any further commentary? It seems like it's a gradual increase from the 2021 budget, you know, but same concept as far as our.
Repair and maintenance there is pretty much the 5,400 without a suffix. That's my staff. That's you know, in-house pavement patching, in-house sidewalk work. If we have any kind of construction project, excavation, fire hydrant replacement, water main break that we have to rehab, that's where all that comes from. We you know, we pour a concrete sub-base and asphalt surface lift on each of the patches. We have sidewalks that we have to do. We have issues with, that's also, you know, any kind of things that happen regarding whether it be failures or, you know, damage due to trees or something like that. Tree, you know, there's a storm and a tree falls and tears up sidewalks, driveways, curbs, whatever. Well, we have to, that all comes out of this.
Okay.
Then we get into the equipment. We do see, in 2022, we see a slight increase. Otherwise, we're looking at about 120 grand a year for the equipment lease. Is that one of the, like the backhoe?
Backhoe will come out of utilities.
Yep.
This is a result of there'll be a new sweeper next year. We didn't get it this year. Things were just so far out, it's like I wasn't even gonna mess around with it. So I'm gonna look at trying to get something on order for delivery mid-year next year. And this is where our replacement vehicles are gonna come from. We ordered through Enterprise, 2 Subaru Ascents to replace 2 of the aged. I've got an 07 Hyundai Santa Fe that I'm replacing. I've got a 13 Explorer that that Enterprise said, now's a good time to rotate that one out. It's still worth substantial dollars. So we rotate that one out, and then next year I'm gonna replace another staff car, and I'm gonna replace another pickup out of my small vehicle fleet in Public Works.
So, that leads us, next 2 areas is our internal service fund, but that's determined by the claims that we incur this year. For now, we're budgeting the same as 2021, but, we'll have a better idea of where that's gonna come in as we, as year end comes and we're preparing for, projecting the remaining 3 months. Our COVID-19, how's that impacted your staff and all that as far as managing any significant expenditures from pandemic related for Public Works at all?
Not to speak of.
Okay.
No, because what I did for COVID is, I split my people in half and I ran 2 different shifts. The only people who worked extra time was me.
Sure.
I mean, I was here from 6 AM to 7 PM, 5 days a week, because I had 2 shifts. I had one 4 to noon and one noon to 8.
Gotcha. Okay. Then we're looking at the capital outlay. As with the police and fire, we're Director Schiller's department is transferring $55,000 toward future major capital outlay items. If we flip the page to the capital projects fund, you see where that contribution is made to that fund, but what we want to be mindful of is
It's not flipping, it's changing, right?
changing.
Yeah, changing.
Going over this with Director Schiller, we foresee expenditures that are in excess of what the Rebuild Illinois program will be able to cover, and just as a conservative estimate for 22 through 25, sorry, there's a typo on the subsequent years, you're foreseeing an excess that to complete those projects. The only question I have is, has there been any indication with the infrastructure bill up there that might provide some further relief on?
We have no idea right now.
Yeah.
They're still fighting with each other, so.
I just looked at it a couple hours to get
Yeah,
an update. It's on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. That may end up helping us. I'm hoping that there's major dollars that get sent from the federal level to continue to replace our water main. So, because with the water main systems, will be water service replacements. We have our ongoing programs with the water service replacements and the flood mitt.
So, yeah, because currently, how we've always done it is if there's a water line break, we're in charge of all the main lines, and none of those have lead. What are they made out of?
Those are either ductile or sand cast iron.
So all of our lines are good, our main ones. But a good majority of all the service lines, which go from the house to the main line, when the houses were constructed, the contractors put in those lines. And since that came with the house, that's always been the responsibility of the homeowner. The newest legislation right now, they have us starting to do inventories on all of the different service lines. Basically, they're all residential or commercial. And then they give us so many years for that. But one of the changes that came about that we have to implement almost right away is, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you've read it inside out, is that whenever we do any replacements or work on our main lines, so for instance, if there's any breaks, if there's any residential lines or any service lines that connect to that, those have to be replaced now, correct?
In certain circumstances, yes. If we do replacements, you know, if we go through and we replace, blocks of water main. In the past, the services were replaced from the main to the B box and then connected, to the existing service line, going into the house. After next year, starting next year, when you do those main upgrades, you have to allow for, budgeting for, service replacement from the main all the way to the house.
So that's another underfunded mandate from the state?
Underfunded, unfunded.
Unfunded. Unfunded.
They
Right
haven't.
now, it's unfunded. There's mechanisms to try to get money. Only happens once a year, and you may or may not get it. So,
Yeah, they haven't really figured out
Yeah.
how they're
Again,
actually gonna help
it's
anyone
one of those
out.
things.
But starting next year, we gotta do it. no
We're gonna
matter what.
mandate it, but then we gotta throw a dart at the wall and see whether we're gonna get funding
Okay,
for it.
yeah.
We'll figure it out later.
So
So-
those are conversations I've had with our congressman concerning that, and once again, even them, they have said municipalities can't afford this is federal funding, so we need to really push our congressional leaders
Yeah.
to really, help us, assist us during this time.
Yeah,
because-
and that was state law that passed, so, I
Yeah.
mean, if the state's gonna say, hey, you need to do this, they should be the ones to say, we're gonna give you some help somehow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's
So-
state or federal funding that helps
Exactly.
it out, because, a lot of this is, a lot of this came from the whole Flint, Michigan thing.
Mhm.
And Flint, Michigan, was a horrible circumstance, but there were a lot of things that took place there that have nothing that are nothing like what's here.
Sure.
So, that being said, but that's what prompted this, and the feds and the states have gotten together. And the thing is that the Midwest is the largest area of lead water services in the country. So, it's going to exponentially greater, affect the Midwest states than it will the rest. So, yeah,
Sure.
the feds are gonna have to step up too,
Mhm.
no doubt about it.
So one thing to note also, I handed out those ARP handouts, remember, if anyone has questions, give me a call, more than happy to answer, but a couple of those items were some larger capital items that include water line replacements.
Water mains for Ogden Avenue,
Mhm.
from Harlem all the way to Lombard, to do upgrades there, and Cermak Road, to replace the water mains on Cermak Road from end to end, of the city.
So.
And
the-
Cermak will also be able to utilize some TIF money on that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll be able to supplement if we need to with TIF dollars, and we're still looking around and see if whether the Fed or state level, has EPA dollars that are available for it.
That way we
I
can
mean, we'll
stretch those.
we'll apply for anything we get, yeah.
That way we can
We're not
stretch
taking-
those
we'll
ARP
take anybody.
dollars.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
If we can supplement it with others,
Okay.
but whereas before, we're like, oh, this will be our cost, because before we knew that Ogden had to be done. That was one of the main ones, because there's all kinds of issues with those lines where it makes it so important to replace those. But before, we didn't know that we were gonna be stuck footing the bill for all of these
Water
service
service
lines
lines.
going into it.
What would
So
have
that
been around a
increase-
$6 million project has turned into about a $10 million project.
So, we obviously won't be able to do as many main water line replacements as we could have before the state legislation that passed. So, I mean, so our projects they're gonna be increasing in cost due to this, so I don't know.
What is the amount of time years wise that all the lines have gotta be, what was the,
That's still kind of fluctuating now. everything has to be in place and plan, and I think it's 3% per year starting in 2025.
I have the legislation I already saved.
But again,
I
it's,
can pass it on if you like.
there's
but-
still, it's still a moving target
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other than the fact that you have to get the plan in place. That one is set in stone.
Good. All right.
So yes, going back to the operate, we just have one area in Public Works, with the fleet department. And that's, we have, salaries and wages, that's one of the mechanics, that's being budgeted. Of course, same thing, contractual 3.5% increase, which would include longevity, and as well as the related health insurance and other related payroll costs. The supplies for the fleet department are the next areas that we just see a gradual ascension. Seems like, perhaps as a function of inflation. Other than that, there's professional services, maybe things that the
Springs, transmissions, things that I can't do in-house that I need to send out to have done.
Yeah. And then our repair and maintenance, same concept on the repair and maintenance.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. So that's the general fund, streets and fleet department. We'll now switch over, we started talking about the utility fund and our water system, and that is Fund 500, and our revenues are predicated in recent years based on our rate structure change implementation that started in 2018. Prior to 2018, our rates were insufficient to accommodate the rise in our costs to maintain our water, not only to maintain our water system, but, major capital expenditures required to maintain and improve our water system as well. So a rate structure was enacted, a 5-year rate structure that is about a 5% increase in and it's usage based. Previously, we had like a flat cost for sewer usage.
Sewers were set up as a flat cost regardless of how much water you used. And, which, the single senior that lives in a house was paying the same sewer rate as a family of 8,
Yeah.
which isn't
That's not fair.
Yeah.
They should be paying based on the usage of water, so we implemented that. Put that together and implemented a multi-year, rate structure, did an analysis and entered into a rate structure by ordinance so that we can adjust our rates annually to make sure we, keep the fund solvent, make sure that we have the ability to, pay any of the, debt that we have with the system, and be able to accommodate improvements to the system.
And not only that, in recently, we're also, we passed, we passed an ordinance to accommodate the increases from the city of Chicago as well.
Yep.
Previously, we didn't have that, we had 5%, but if the city of Chicago decides their.
City of Chicago raises their rates every year in June,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, the utility fund's been effective for us. I know we
Yeah.
went back and forth with that I got on council basically. So it's been good because if we do, a senior is not overpaying and somebody else is. It's basically usage and it works out better. A lot of people complain where their utility bills or their water bill or their bill is higher, but it's usage based. And if it is really large, then you probably have a leak. Most of the time, there's something going on. It
If you have a
shouldn't
high
drastically
bill,
change like that.
It's water going through your meter, so you have water running somewhere.
And And we also, I don't know if all the aldermen know, but we do have water payment programs that we've set up. It's been going on for what, at least 2-3 years now?
Yeah, I mean,
Or,
people.
well, we've expanded it, is what it is. Can you explain it, cause it comes out, it started from the.
We enacted, we would initially call it the water shut-off policy, about years ago.
We've had a policy
Yeah.
for years, but during the recession, you know, things were backed off because people had hard times, or a lot of foreclosures going on, people were in a bad way. So there was some water bills that were, that had not been paid in 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So at some point, you gotta get those caught up, so
We-
once
we-
that,
Yeah.
you know, things were improving,
Yeah.
that's when,
We enacted a policy that, you know, as a result, just identifying people that were going years in arrears. And, you know, 5 years after the recession, well, maybe 2 or 3 years after the recession, we're like, well, wait a minute here. We've got to alert these households that are, you know, well beyond a reasonable amount of time past due.
It'd be like
So, yeah.
15,000, 20,000 even.
Right, well, at one time, yeah, you had a string of people that had at least $3,000 balances, and just bringing that to people's attention and getting the responsiveness that, yes, we are actually going to shut people's water off if they fail to come in and make payment arrangements. And we were able to improve upon our collections as a result. And with that being said, though, you know, the responsiveness is important. I mean, if people are coming in there and, you know, if they have a high water, we will do our best to work with those, as long as they're being responsive to
the
us.
city was sympathetic with the fact that, you
Yeah.
know, asking somebody to walk up and put down $4,000 to bring your water bill current
Yeah,
is a tough thing to do, so,
yeah,
you know, there were payment plans that were set up so that they could pay over time and, get things paid down and not be so burdensome on their family.
and then, you know, if they made payments as agreed upon, we also, you know, there's penalties that are incurred on the house. We are, you know, inclined to remove a portion of the penalties as a result of good payment history and things like that, so it's even less burdensome there.
And it's good to note that
Yeah.
also during COVID, we actually stopped doing any water shut-offs for a good amount of the year. And we only
Well, it's
started,
probably a better part of a year.
like, yeah, at least a full year. So we stopped that because we knew everyone was getting hard hit. And we obviously didn't want to burden people who were down already with something extra.
The key thing is just finding a balance though, because, you know, we have a fund, you know, we have to make sure our cash flow.
And we still have to pay the city of Chicago, they don't say, oh, no, you don't have to pay your bill.
Right.
They didn't give us a break?
They're not gonna.
There's no break there.
There's no payment plan or
Yeah.
anything like that. We have to pay on the double or else, you know, we're in big trouble,
So,
so,
well,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah, so every year we can expect an increase, you know, the
Yeah.
Chicago increases. The one thing that is kind of nice right now that they hinted, it will help in the future years, is there's some large suburban communities who before were grabbing water elsewhere, and now they're gonna, planning in the next 10 years, like Joliet's one of those. And then some of the other surrounding areas are gonna actually start using the city of Chicago for their water. So the more people, the more communities that actually utilize Chicago, hopefully it'll help bring like maintenance down, you know, for all of the communities as a whole, but the more people you add to it, so we'll see
Okay.
what happens. I'm curious.
You know, the thing to bear in mind though is that our rate structure, I think next year is the last year of our ordinance rate structure. And
If it is, then we need
Yeah.
to
Yes.
go forward and continue doing a rates analysis again, see
Yeah.
what the surrounding communities are paying, because we still, with our annual increases, we're still
Very
one of the
different.
lowest in the area.
Yeah.
yeah, we're very,
Mm-hmm.
We
very,
gotta keep on fixing those old lines.
Yep.
Yeah.
yes. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that's just to give you a heads up that, you know, we gotta monitor that closely. So that's on the revenue side, we are growing the revenues in accordance with, consistent to what our ordinance dictates as far as our rates. The other thing to keep in mind is our garbage.
Mhm.
It's normally somewhere between a 2 and 3% contractual increase with our contract with waste management. Is that the contract?
I have
is-
to look at the term of
Yeah.
the contract, I don't know
I
offhand.
think we have a couple of more years on it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably at least a couple more
Or
years.
that. And they normally charge a percentage in addition to a fuel surcharge, I believe.
Depending upon the cost of fuel.
And we just passed the cost on to, you know, to our residents from there, so.
Okay.
And
Just a reminder, if anyone gets complaints regarding waste management, the first council meeting that everyone came in, the representative had a letter with all the contact numbers for you, so if you get calls from residents, you can call, the route supervisor directly or email them. So don't give that number to residents, but you have the contact, so you can do that. Otherwise, they also call City Hall and we take care of that also.
Good.
and the thing to remember, I've heard and seen chatter about we should change from waste management. Not being a proponent of waste management, just gonna state pure facts. If you change and you wanna rebid the garbage services, great. Understand, Waste Management is the only company right now that does the At Your Door program. They pick up your paints, they pick up your TVs, they pick up all that stuff.
All electronics, all the motor fuel
That
oil,
no
all
one
the
else does.
paints.
Flood Brothers doesn't do it, Group doesn't do it, Republic doesn't do it.
So-
They're the only ones that have it, so
And bringing it in-house is not feasible for us, we don't have.
there's no
we
place to
don't-
dispose it.
we
There's
don't have
nowhere
any
to
land.
dispose it, literally.
Right.
So like the state might have a few days, like at a few communities every year where you can get rid of those, but they're not anywhere near close by to us.
No, you'd have
I
to
mean,
put-
our residents really don't have anywhere if it weren't for this, hardly anywhere
Yep.
to actually dispose. And some other communities, if you want to, they'll charge you.
Oh, yeah, everybody,
They
most
charge.
everybody charges.
Yep.
And I can confirm.
Naperville is $25 a TV.
I can confirm that they do a really nice job. They actually was able to haul, some really bulky televisions from us.
But yeah, they're.
You've utilized that at
Right,
your door.
right,
I
right,
have
that's
too.
fine.
The guy is a super nice guy
Yeah.
that runs the route in Berwyn.
For at your
Yeah.
door.
He
Yeah.
is just a really nice guy.
Yeah.
So make sure to let your residents know, remind them. And what's nice is every month, they actually send me updates on how much was picked up throughout Berwyn. And they actually break it down to the types of things that they picked up
Mhm.
from electronics to the paints to.
That'd be
Di-
interesting.
different
if-
things.
The
that'd be
last
interesting
month,
information for us.
91% of everything that they picked up on the At Your Door program
Is recycled.
was recycled.
Good.
So, I mean, yeah, so, I mean, it's a great, for us to try to be environmentally friendly, because for years, places were like, oh, yeah, recycle, we'll take your stuff, we'll actually give you money. And then I remember.
That's
was it-
because the state was funding them on the backside of it. That's
Yeah,
why we had all those
exactly.
people that were doing it.
That's why ComEd before used to take those fridges and now they don't, because they were obligated by the state
Sure.
before, now they're not. So it's just like, but right now, for municipalities to actually recycle, it's costing them the same as garbage. I mean, there's no rebates, it's not cheap, but it's, ethically, we should be taking care of our planet for, afterwards. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's just something for us to think about.
Mhm.
But, that At Your Door program does allow our residents to get rid of items, and for those items to actually, a good 80 to 90% of all of that is recycled correctly,
Good.
Yeah.
so.
And the contact information is on our website. as
All of
well.
that information is on our website for At Your Door.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
And we have it in Public Works, they call all the time, and we just provide the info through there as well.
And they will actually come right to your door to pick it up, right at the bottom of your stairs.
So So we'll move over to the expenses if there's no other thoughts on the revenues. Looking at the water and sewer salaries and related costs, the combination, staffing wise, is a combination of two different unions, as well as our non-union, some non-union employees would be our public works and our ASME clerical, as far as
There's Public Works, there's 705, and I'm, myself, and I'm out of the water as well, so
Yep.
I think I'm the only non-union one as of right now.
Okay.
And for now, we're building a 3% contractual
Good.
increase that blends down. The same, explanation as far as the public works, health insurance, dental, same initial projection increases, as well as the IMRF and Medicare as a percentage of payroll.
Oh, just as a side note, just
Yeah.
so you know, anyone who's not police or fire, basically with the unions, they're basically in a different pension system. That's the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, which is separate. And we just got done with an audit with them. They came in recently, just a few months ago. We finished up an audit and it went very well. They were very happy how finance was submitting everything that it needed to, it went very well.
Good,
So
good.
kudos to finance for working on that audit with IMRF.
Perfect.
Thank you, and again, it's just ensuring, IMRS is just ensuring that the city is withholding properly. There's many different guidelines as far as who's eligible for IMRF and who's not, so we constantly gotta stay ahead of the curve there.
Good.
And it's nice that they're actually funded where they should be.
Yes.
So that's always a nice relief.
Very encouraging. Areas of expenditures, any further comment on that area? I think you touched upon with vehicle, and supplies and so forth. Most of them very similar to what we budgeted for 2021 for now, and we'll keep monitoring that.
Yeah, professional services, I've added, 150,000 for a, set of specs for, the.
Water tower?
Taking down the water tower, emptying, draining the tower, and having it sandblasted inside and out and refinished.
Okay.
It's to about the point where it's about ready for that to be done.
We've been talking about that for quite a few years. It's quite a large expense to do the full thing.
It's approximately $1.2 million to actually do it.
Okay. All right.
So that puts together the repair and maintenance. Again, consistent with our 2021 budget. It looks like we have a new, for equipment lease, we have a lease that we just entered with the, one of the trucks.
Yeah, we recently secured a replacement dump truck. That'll go into our snow fleet as well. It's fully equipped with snow plow, salt spreader. And we're probably within a year of doing another one as well. Cause I've got, I've got a 2000, I've got two 2003s yet. These trucks are exposed to salt 5 months a year. And as well as you wash them, that salt gets into everything. And I have replaced, I've extended the life of them, I've replaced the dump bodies on every one of them, recycled those out, and gotten another 8 or 9 years out of the trucks, because the trucks themselves don't get, a ton of miles on them. We're only 3.8 square miles, so, I mean, how far are they gonna go?
Yeah.
But during the winter months, they're driven really hard and in really rough conditions, so.
Now, talking about winter, I know all the aldermen are gonna start getting phone calls probably from residents when snow starts coming. I know our policy is we hardly ever do the alleys.
Alleys are.
So that's something to note that residents should know, we do not do alleys. The only reason we did them last year was because the garbage trucks could not get through. And one of the big reasons everyone knows is we have rats in Berwyn Chicago is actually #1 in the nation, I saw, for rats. I just read it.
Seventh year in the war.
Yeah, Orkin did their study, I just read it the other day. And we need to pick up our garbage, and that was one of the complaints. And so to make that happen, we actually had to plow those alleys. And the problem is that you can't just push it, but you actually have to find somewhere to take it.
You have to scoop it, you have to load it, you have to haul it away, and you have to dump it somewhere.
So we were fortunate that McNeil Loyola allowed us to use one of their parking lots to put it, otherwise there wouldn't be anywhere.
Yep.
And then there's also the constant complaint that if you do the alleys, that it pushes against people's garages, even though you take the majority of it out and we dump it somewhere else. So there's also always that complaint that you're gonna get, that my garage was damaged, or I just shoveled and now there's more snow there. So because of those reasons, and the high cost to actually do it, around how many?
The last time we did the alleys, it was in the upwards of $70,000.
And that's just to do it once. So
Um,
every time you plow all the alleys in Berwyn, you can expect at least $70,000 for the cost to do that. So just to take note, as we're gonna be entering the winter season, when residents are like, why aren't the alleys being done?
Well, and, what I always encourage people is get to know your neighbors.
Yep.
Mhm.
Everybody go out, you throw
Yeah.
a 6-pack on the top of a garbage can,
Right.
and you get 3 or 4 of you go out and you take a snow blowers and you just go tandem down and
Yeah.
have a beer together and tell war stories about how the snow was.
Yeah.
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 All right, well, that's good to know about the 70,000.
Yep.
Okay. What's next?
So, we talked about, next section, cost of water, that's the city of Chicago. We're projecting a 3% increase, but then again, we normally, as Director Schiller had mentioned, we normally, hear from the city sometime around March or April as to what the, increase is going to be. The rest of the items, that we see is the, yes, our interdepartmental charges, that's all a function of the city's departments and the support of the utility fund. So that's an allocation of our various city departments there. And again, we have our interest expense that's based on previous bond issues that that's our obligation to pay, and it's mapped up. And then, of course, our capital outlays, in this sense, the utility fund, the capital outlay stays within that fund, unlike with the capital projects fund. And we're looking at about the same expenditures for now. Any further comment on the capital?
Well, I mean, the capital outlay is a moving target. It's something I can plan a certain amount of it, but part of that is my on-call sewer and water maintenance. So I get main failures, sewer main failures. I've got 105 miles of sewers in the city of Berwyn that range anywhere from 6-inch to 96-inch. So if I get sewer failures, I typically will have a contractor fix those in the middle of the street. I don't have equipment that'll go deep enough to do that. I can maintain the water end of it, but not the sewer end. I don't have that type of equipment, nor do I have the places to put it if I had it. So that's kind of a wild card. We don't know what it's gonna be until it happens. Some years it's been real good, and other years it's not been so good. So it just depends on what kind of rain events you have and all of that.
And I know one of the things that you've been doing with a lot of the projects now to extend the life of the sewer lines is you've been lining them, correct?
Mhm. We've been doing that on some of the major reconstruction projects. Lombard, when we just did Lombard, from Roosevelt down to 29th, we lined the sewer main through there. It's up in the Parkway, it's a clay line, had a lot of root intrusion, so it's clean, completely cleaned, and they install the lining in there, and then they cut out where all the services are. So it basically makes it to be a almost watertight sewer line, prevent the root intrusion. It extends the life dramatically.
Okay.
That wraps up going over the budget reports. Any other further questions?
No, I don't have any.
I
There's a
don't
lot
have
here.
anything here for motor fuel tax yet, though. Like I said, motor fuel tax covers streetlights, the streetlight maintenance, traffic signal maintenance, covers the road salt, covers the energy for the streetlights, which on a typical year is about $350,000.
Now,
So-
question, how does it work with the alleys? Cause I know that ComEd is responsible for those. Have they started replacing the alley lights with?
They
the-
have. They've pretty much gotten through all of them.
Have they?
I'm waiting to hear from them about cost savings.
That's exactly what I
I
would-
haven't heard anything about that. All of a
That's
sudden-
exactly what I was gonna ask you, cause I
all of a
know
sudden-
obviously there's, yeah. It's saving them money.
No,
Well,
they're
it's-
making more money.
They're making money
because
more off of us because.
What we have is we have what's called a rate 23 or rate 25 lease program for all of the lights in the alleys. There's
Mhm.
probably in excess of about 2,000 lights in the alleys that we pay for. There's a rental component for the light itself, and then there's an energy component that's built into that as well. So in theory, we should at some point have to be able to sit down with these people and say, what are you gonna do, how are you adjusting? When it comes to the lighting and stuff, but, you know.
Okay. All righty, do we have any new business to talk about? So you'll have the other information for us, the motor fuel information for when we sit down on the,
We can do it that way, or I can bring it right to council, because it's basically an in and out.
okay,
I got our allotment, which is typically about 1.6 million a year. And then, I'll have a list of expenditures, and city council approves every year a motor fuel tax resolution, which authorizes, that's where the state approves and authorizes us to spend the money.
okay.
And then we'll update the budget accordingly.
Did
Sounds
you,
good.
Ben, did you wanna contact the clerk's office, help put together the agenda for, the 8th then? Because that's when you
Yeah.
wanted to meet
We do
next,
that.
correct? The 8th?
Correct. Now Veterans Day is gonna be the 11th, right? When do we observe?
11th, the 11th is Veterans Day, and we're
Okay,
closed, that's
alright.
Thursday, the 11th.
Okay. we can do that.
So we are open on
Yeah.
We'll
the,
put an agenda together, or
That'd be
whatever,
great.
I'll put the
Yeah.
agenda.
that way I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure we get it to the clerks in time to get
Good.
posted and everything.
Sounds good.
And-
All right, I just need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
Thank
No,
you.
this was a little longer than normal, but
Thank you.
there's a
There's a
lot of
lot more to
activity in
cover.
Public Works.
Yeah. Not much. All right.
I just let them know that we ended.
See you tomorrow night.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, that'll be good.